The massive doors of the council chamber opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the hall. Captain Jake Morrison stepped forward, his polished uniform bearing the symbols of Earth's United Nations. Behind him walked Ambassador Lisa Carter. Carrying the hopes of 8 billion humans in her briefcase, the chamber was enormous. 12 floating platforms arranged in a perfect circle, each one holding representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy. Above them, the ceiling showed the stars of 1,000 worlds, all united under the Galactic Council's rule. The air smelled of ozone and alien flowers, a reminder that this place belonged to beings far older than humanity. Jake had been to many important meetings, but nothing like this. Today would decide if humans could stay among the stars or be sent back to their small corner of space. His heart beat faster as he looked up at the alien faces staring down at him. "Captain Morrison of Earth," spoke a voice that sounded like wind through crystal caves. "You stand before the council to answer for your species." The speaker was Vexthari, a being that looked like a tall tree made of silver metal. Her kind, the Zentari, had ruled the council for 300 years. Her voice carried the weight of ages, and Jake could feel the power behind every word. "We are here to speak for humanity," Jake replied, his voice strong despite his nerves. "We believe we can be good members of this council." A sound like grinding stone came from another platform. The Altarian representative, a creature covered in thick armor plates, shifted forward. "Good members? Your species has caused nothing but trouble since you joined us." Ambassador Carter stepped up beside Jake. She had spent 5 years learning alien languages and customs. If anyone could save humanity's place in the galaxy, it was her. "Honored council members," she began, bowing in the traditional way. "Humanity has made mistakes. We admit this. But we have also brought great gifts to our alliance." "Gifts?" The word came from a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. "You call war and destruction gifts?" Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. These aliens saw only what they wanted to see. They ignored all the good things humans had done. "In the past 3 years," Carter continued, doctors have saved over 2 million alien lives. Our engineers built the quantum gates that connect 50 star systems. Our soldiers died protecting council worlds from pirates and raiders." "Yes," said Vexthari, "and in doing so you solved every problem with violence. You see a threat, you shoot it. You find resistance, you break it. This is not the council way." Jake wanted to scream. These aliens had lived in peace for so long. They had forgotten how to fight. When real danger came, they called for human help. But when the shooting stopped, they complained about human methods. "Speaker Vexthari," Jake said, "with respect, the council way doesn't work against everyone. Some enemies only understand force." "And that," said the Altarian, his voice like rocks tumbling down a mountain, "is exactly why you don't belong here. You think like barbarians?" The insult hit Jake like a physical blow. He had been called many things in his military career, but never a barbarian. He had fought to protect worlds, saved billions of lives, and lost good friends in battles. These aliens were too afraid to fight themselves. Barbarians? Carter's voice carried a dangerous edge. Barbarians who gave you faster-than-light medicine? Barbarians who designed your defensive systems? Barbarians who died so your children could sleep safely? A new voice joined the conversation. It was soft and musical, like water flowing over stones. The human representatives speak with passion. Perhaps we should remember their contributions before we judge too harshly. Jake looked toward the sound and saw Zaraman of the Kepler Union. Her people looked almost human, except for their blue skin and large silver eyes. The Keplers had always been friends to humanity. "Zaraman speaks wisely," said another voice. "This one belonged to a small creature that looked like a furry ball with 6 arms. The humans have helped us greatly." But Vexthari raised 1 silver. Branch and silence fell over the chamber. "We have debated this matter for many cycles. The evidence is clear. Humanity spreads too quickly, fights too eagerly, and refuses to follow our guidance. They are a danger to the peace we have built." "What peace?" Jake could not stop himself. "The peace that lets pirates raid the outer worlds because you won't fight them? The peace that watches planets starve because sending food might disturb Trade agreements? That's not peace, that's cowardice. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several aliens stood up, their forms shifting with rage. Jake realized he had gone too far, but he didn't care. These beings had made up their minds long ago. Ambassador Carter grabbed his arm. "Captain," she whispered. "Please." Jake took a deep breath and stepped back. Carter was right. Anger wouldn't help now. "Honored Council," Carter said, her voice calm again. "Captain Morrison spoke from frustration, not disrespect. We ask only for a chance to prove ourselves. Give us time to show that humanity can learn your ways." "Time," repeated Vexthari. "You have had time. 3 years of membership, and in that time you have started 4 wars, colonized 16 worlds. Without permission and repeatedly ignored our direct orders. We started wars against pirates and slavers," Jake protested. "We colonized empty worlds that no one else wanted. And we ignored orders that would have cost innocent lives. You see?" The Altarian spread his massive arms. "Even now they justify their actions. They cannot learn because they believe they are always right." The floating jellyfish pulsed with angry colors. "The young species always think they know better than their elders, but we have kept peace in this galaxy for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of doing nothing," Jake muttered. This time, Vexthari's voice carried the force of a hurricane. "Enough, Captain Morrison. You prove our point with every word. Your species cannot accept guidance. You cannot follow rules. You are too dangerous to remain among civilized beings." The chamber fell silent. Jake felt the weight of that silence. Pressing down on him, he had failed. Humanity would pay the price for his anger. "The vote has already been taken," Vexthari announced. 11 members vote for exile. Only the Kepler Union stands with humanity. Zariman stood up on her platform. Her silver eyes were sad as she looked at Jake and Carter. "I vote against this exile. The humans have hearts of warriors and minds of builders. The galaxy needs both." "The galaxy needs order," replied Vexthari. "The decision is final. Humanity will withdraw from all council space within 1 standard year. All colonies beyond your home system must be abandoned. All trade agreements are void. All military vessels must return to Earth immediately." Jake felt the words like blows to his chest. Millions of humans lived on those colonies. They had built homes, started families, created new lives among the stars. Now they would lose everything. "You condemn us for trying to help," he said quietly. "One day you'll wish we were still here." "We think not," said the Altarian. "The galaxy will be more peaceful without human interference." Ambassador Carter vowed one final time, "We will comply with your decision. But remember this day, honored council. Remember it when you need warriors and find only diplomats. Remember it when you need builders and find only bureaucrats." As they turned to leave, Jake heard Zariman's voice one last time. "You are making a terrible mistake. The humans may be young and violent, but they are also brave and loyal. When darkness comes to this galaxy, you will regret sending away the only species willing to fight it." The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Jake and Carter walked through the empty corridors of Nexus Prime Station, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Around them, alien citizens avoided their eyes, already treating them like outcasts. At the docking bay, Admiral Paul Bennett waited beside the shuttle that would take them back to the human fleet. His weathered face was grim as he watched them. "Approach? How bad?" he asked. "Complete exile," Carter replied. "We have 1 year to withdraw from all council space." Bennett nodded slowly. "The fleet is ready to begin the evacuation. But Jake, there are 12 million humans scattered across 63 worlds. Getting them all home will take time." Jake looked back at the gleaming towers of Nexus Prime. Somewhere in those towers, the council members were probably celebrating their victory over the dangerous humans. They thought they had solved a problem. "Admiral," Jake said, "send the message to all human colonies. Tell them to pack everything they can carry." "We're going home? And after that?" Bennett asked. Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. "After that, we show them what humans can really do when we're not holding back." 15 years had passed since the Great Exile. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in her laboratory aboard New Horizons Station, watching Jupiter's red spots swirl through the massive viewing window. The station was one of humanity's greatest achievements. A city in space that housed 3 million people in the shadow of the giant planet. Elena's hands moved quickly over her equipment. The quantum field generator hummed with power as she made final adjustments to her latest experiment. For months, she had been working on something the council scientists said was impossible. Today, she would prove them wrong. "Dr. Rodriguez," called her assistant, Dr. Kevin Park, from across the lab. "The readings are off the scale. Are you sure this is safe?" Elena smiled without looking away from her work. "Kevin, we've been playing. It's safe for 15 years. Where has that gotten us? Still stuck in our own backyard while the galaxy moves on without us?" The device in front of her was no bigger than a briefcase, but it contained technology that could change everything. If her calculations were correct, this little box could send messages faster than light itself. Real communication across the galaxy, not the slow relay system the council used. A soft chime filled the lab as the experiment reached its peak. Numbers flowed across Elena's screen faster than human eyes could follow. Then, suddenly, silence. "Did it work?" Kevin asked. Elena stared at her screen, hardly believing what she saw. "It worked. Kevin, we just sent a message to Proxima Centauri and got a reply in under 3 seconds. The Council's best system takes 6 hours." While Elena celebrated her breakthrough in the Jupiter system, Commander Alex Thompson watched construction crews work on Titan Base, humanity's newest settlement. The moon's orange sky was filled with the shapes of cargo, ships bringing supplies from Earth, and the asteroid mines. Alex had been in charge of building humanity's new homes for the past 10 years. It was not easy work. When the exile began, 12 million humans had to leave their colonies and come back to the Sol system. Earth couldn't hold them all, so they had to build new cities in space. Commander Thompson, his aide, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, approached with a datapad. The weekly report from all stations. Alex took the pad and looked at the numbers. New Horizon Station around Jupiter was growing every month. Ceres Base in the asteroid belt now housed 2 million miners and their families. Mars had become humanity's second major world, with cities under its red surface. "How many people are we housing now?" Alex asked. 14 million across all stations and colonies, Sarah replied. "Population growth is steady." "Birth rates are actually higher than they were before the exile," Alex nodded. That was one thing the Council had not expected. Instead of breaking humanity's spirit, the exile had made them stronger. Families that had been scattered across the galaxy were now together again. People worked harder when they were building something for their own children. "What about the defense grid?" Alex asked. "General Santos reports all systems are ready." "The Council won't catch us sleeping if they ever decide we're a threat." Far from the civilian stations, Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos commanded humanity's new defense fleet from the bridge of the UES Defender. The ship was smaller than the old Council-approved vessels, but it was faster and more deadly than anything humanity had built before. "Colonel," reported her weapons officer, Captain Brad Chun, "all systems show green. The new plasma cannons are ready for testing." Maria looked out at the fleet training formation. 50 ships moved through space like a school of deadly fish. Each one was equipped with technology the Council had never seen. Stealth systems that could hide entire fleets. Weapons that could punch through any known armor. Engines that could outrun anything in the galaxy. "Begin the exercise," Maria ordered. Half the ships suddenly vanished from all sensors. The stealth technology worked by bending light and energy around the ships, making them invisible to most detection systems. The remaining visible ships began complex maneuvers, testing their new abilities. "Stealth ships have reached attack positions," reported Lieutenant Commander Tony Liu from the sensor station. "Enemy formation is completely surrounded." "Fire simulation," Maria commanded. The exercise was over in minutes. The visible ships had been destroyed before they could even locate their attackers. The new tactics would have shocked the Council admirals who thought they knew how space battles should be fought. On Earth, President William Hayes sat in his office reading reports from across human space. Each report told the same story. Humanity was not just surviving their exile, They were growing stronger. His secretary, Janet Ross, entered with more documents. Mr. President, the monthly briefings from our deep space scouts. William opened the first folder and found maps of star systems the Council had never explored. Captain Ryan Burke and his team had been mapping the galaxy's edge for 5 years, finding new worlds and resources that no one else knew about. Any contact with alien life? William asked. 3 new species discovered, Janet replied. All of them are interested in trade, but they're afraid of the Council. They want to deal with us directly, William smiled. The Council thought they had cut humanity off from the galaxy. They didn't know about the secret trade routes or the hidden bases that Captain Burke had established. Humanity was building its own network, separate from Council control. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Admiral Paul Bennett entered, his face serious. Paul, William said, what brings you here? We've been listening to Council communications. Bennett replied, there are problems in their space. Pirate attacks are increasing. Several member species are having population issues, and their military is struggling with outdated equipment. Are they asking for help? No, pride won't let them admit they need us. But the problems are real. Some Council worlds are barely defended. William thought about this news. Part of him wanted to help. Despite everything, he didn't want to see innocent people suffer. But another part remembered the insults and the exile. The Council had made their choice. In her laboratory, Elena Rodriguez worked late into the night. Her communication breakthrough was just the beginning. Human scientists, freed from Council restrictions, were making discoveries at an incredible rate. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, her colleague from the medical division, stopped by with coffee and news. Elena, you need to see what we've accomplished in the biolabs. Jennifer led her to another section of the station where human doctors were working with new medicines and treatments. Without Council regulations limiting their research, they had found cures for diseases that had plagued both humans and aliens for centuries. We could save millions of lives with this, Jennifer said, showing Elena data on a new cancer treatment. But the Council still refuses all contact with us. Their loss, Elena replied. We'll use it to help our own people first. Maybe someday they'll come asking for our help. Back on the bridge of the UES Defender, Maria Santos received a priority message from Earth. She read it twice before calling her senior officers together. Command has picked up some interesting signals, she announced. Long-range sensors are detecting unknown ships at the galaxy's edge. They're not from any Council species. Captain Sheen frowned. Pirates? Too organized for pirates. And too far? Out. These ships are coming from outside our galaxy entirely. The meeting room fell silent. Everyone knew what that could mean. Humanity had always wondered if there was intelligent life beyond the Milky Way. Now it seemed they might get their answer. What are our orders? Asked Lieutenant Commander Liu. We watch and wait, Maria replied. Command wants full sensor data on these unknowns. If they're peaceful, we'll make contact. If they're hostile... She didn't need to finish the sentence. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Captain Ryan Burke piloted his scout ship through an uncharted system. His mission was supposed to be routine, mapping, but what he found made his blood run cold. The third planet in the system showed signs of a massive civilization. Cities that had once housed billions were now empty ruins. The oceans were gone, the atmosphere was poisoned. Whatever had lived here was dead. Captain, his science officer, Dr. Amy Foster, reported from her station. I'm reading traces of exotic energy weapons. This planet was attacked by something with technology we've never seen. Ryan stared at the dead world below. How long ago? Maybe 6 months. The radiation signatures are still fresh? Ryan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. Something had killed an entire civilization and left their world a wasteland. If that something was still out there, it might be heading toward more populated areas. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Priority 1, we may have a problem. Back. On Earth, President Hayes received Captain Burke's report with growing concern. He called an emergency meeting with his top advisors, including Admiral Bennett and General Kevin Clark. If Burke is right, General Clark said, there's something out there that can destroy entire planets. We need to prepare for the worst. The question is, Admiral Bennett added, do we warn the Council? They exiled us, but innocent lives are at stake. President Hayes stood at his window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's former allies were going about their daily lives, unaware of the danger approaching. Despite everything, he couldn't let billions die without warning. Council Admiral Vexvara stood on the bridge of the mighty warship Eternal Glory, watching his fleet move through space toward the outer rim systems. Reports of strange attacks had been coming in for weeks, but the Council believed they were. Dealing with a new type of pirate gang, Vexvara was a veteran of 100 battles against raiders and smugglers. His thick armor plates, polished to a golden shine, bore the scars of many fights. He had never lost a major engagement, and he did not plan to start now. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're receiving another distress call from the Kepler mining station on Vega 7. What do they say? Vexvara asked. The same as the others, sir? Ships of unknown design, using weapons they've never seen before. They're requesting immediate assistance. Vexvara studied the tactical display. 7 attacks in the past month, all following the same pattern. The attackers would arrive without warning, destroy all defenses, then strip the planets of resources. Before disappearing again, increase speed, he ordered. These pirates have grown too bold. Time to remind them why the Council rules this galaxy. The fleet of 30 ships moved faster through space, their crews confident in their strength. The Council military had kept peace for 1,000 years. No enemy had ever been able to stand against their combined might, but when they arrived at Vega 7, Admiral Vexvara found something that shook his confidence to its core. The mining station was gone. Not destroyed in the usual way with wreckage floating in space. It was simply gone as if it had never existed at all. Where is the station? He demanded. His sensor officer, a nervous young Zentari named Kexelin, studied his instruments with growing confusion. Sir, according to our records, there should be a mining complex here with 30,000 workers. But I'm reading nothing. No structures, no debris, no life signs. That's impossible. You don't make a station that large disappear without a trace. Sir, I'm detecting traces of unknown energy signatures, and the asteroid field that supported the mining operation ... It's gone too. Vexvara felt cold fear creep up his spine. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. Pirates stole cargo and destroyed ships, but they didn't make entire installations vanish. Admiral! The communications officer's voice was sharp with panic. We're detecting multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. Configuration unknown, but they're big. The tactical display lit up with red markers. 12 massive shapes. We're moving toward the Council fleet at incredible speed. As they got closer, the sensors revealed their true nature. The ships were unlike anything in Council records. They looked more like geometric puzzles than vessels, with surfaces that seemed to shift and change as they moved. Each one was larger than the Council's biggest dreadnought, and they moved with a fluid grace that suggested advanced technology. Open communications, Vexvara ordered. Standard greeting protocols. The communications officer worked at his station for several minutes before shaking his head. No response, sir. They're not using any known communication methods. Then we'll have to speak in a language they understand, Vexvara said grimly. All ships battle formation, prepare to engage. The Council fleet arranged itself in the traditional defensive pattern that had served them well for centuries. Larger ships formed the center, with smaller vessels protecting their flanks. It was a formation designed to maximize firepower while protecting the most important vessels. The unknown ships responded by doing something no enemy had ever done before. They separated into individual geometric pieces, like a puzzle coming apart, then reformed into a completely different configuration. What had been 12 large ships became 60 smaller ones, arranged in a pattern that surrounded the Council. Fleet, impossible, breathed Vexvara. Ships can't just reshape themselves like that. Admiral, his weapons officer reported, they're charging some kind of energy weapons. Power levels are off our scales. All ships, open fire. The Council fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion torpedoes filled space with deadly energy. For a moment, it seemed like the attack might succeed. Several of the unknown ships were hit and seemed to stagger, but then something happened that made Dexvara's blood turn to ice. The damaged ships began to repair themselves, their wounds closing like living tissue. Worse, the weapons that had damaged them seemed to have no effect when fired again. "Sir?" The weapons officer's voice cracked with fear. "They're adapting to our weapons. Our plasma cannons aren't penetrating their hulls anymore." The unknown ships returned fire with weapons that defied all understanding. Beams of dark energy that seemed to eat through matter itself. The Council ship Bright Star took a direct hit and simply crumbled, its hull dissolving like sugar in water. "All ships retreat," Dexvara ordered, but it was too late. The enemy had surrounded them completely, and their ships moved with impossible speed and coordination. One by one, the Council vessels fell. Not destroyed in explosions of fire and metal, but consumed by the dark energy weapons that left nothing behind. When it was over, only Dexvara's flagship remained, kept alive for reasons he couldn't understand. A new sound filled the bridge. Not words in any language, but something that spoke directly to the mind. Cold, mechanical thoughts that hurt to receive. "We are the void. We consume. We grow. Your resistance feeds us." Dexvara tried to respond, but found he couldn't speak. The alien presence in his mind was too strong, too alien for organic thoughts to process. "Your species will serve our purpose. Your matter will become our matter. Your energy will power our expansion." The communication ended as suddenly as it had begun. Dexvara's ship was released, left floating alone among the empty spaces where his fleet had been. He ordered an immediate retreat to Council space, carrying news that would shake the galaxy's foundations. Meanwhile, on the peaceful world of Centauri Beta, Governor Helena Walsh was enjoying her morning coffee when the emergency alarms began to sound. Helena was one of the few humans who had chosen to remain in Council space despite the exile, working as a civilian administrator on this quiet agricultural world. "Governor Walsh," her aide, Marcus Brown, ran into her office with a face white with fear. "We're receiving priority alerts from the defense grid. Unknown ships are approaching the system." Helena looked out her window at the green fields and peaceful farms that covered much of Centauri Beta. 2 million people lived here, mostly farmers and their families who had never seen real violence in their lives. "How many ships?" she asked. "Sensors show 24 contacts, but the readings don't make sense. The ships keep changing size and configuration." Helena felt her stomach drop. She had heard rumors about the attacks on the Outer Rim, but the Council had assured everyone that pirates were responsible. This sounded like something much worse. "Marcus, activate the emergency broadcast system. Tell everyone to evacuate to the underground shelters immediately." As Marcus ran to carry out her orders, Helena looked up at the sky. Dark shapes were beginning to appear, blotting out the stars. The void swarm had arrived. The attack began without warning. Beams of dark energy reached down from the sky, touching farms and cities alike. But instead of explosions, the buildings simply began to dissolve. People screamed as they watched their homes melt away like ice in the sun. Helena ran through the streets, helping evacuate civilians while the world came apart around her. The void ships weren't just destroying the planet. They were taking it apart piece by piece, converting every atom into raw material for their own purposes. A young girl, no more than 7 years old, sat crying beside the remains of what had been her house. Helena scooped her up and ran toward the spaceport where the last evacuation ships were preparing to leave. "My mommy," the girl sobbed. "Where's my mommy?" Helena didn't answer. She had seen what happened to people caught by the dark energy beams. There was nothing left to save. The evacuation ship lifted off just as the void reached the spaceport. Helena watched through the viewport as Centauri Beta died below them. The green fields turned black, the oceans boiled away, and the very air became poisonous. In less than 6 hours, a world that had supported millions of lives became a lifeless husk. "Governor," the ship's captain, an alien called Rickster, approached her. "We managed to save about 50,000 people. But the rest ... I know," Helena said quietly. Send a message to Earth. Tell them the void is real, and it's worse than anyone imagined. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Paul Bennett received Helena's message in his command center on Luna Base. The images she had sent showed the complete destruction of Centauri Beta in terrifying detail. This was not warfare as humans understood it. This was extermination. Admiral, his intelligence officer, Colonel Diana Lee, entered with more reports. We're receiving similar messages from across Council space. The Void Swarm has attacked 17 systems in the past week. Total casualties are estimated at over 1 billion people. Bennett studied the tactical displays showing the swarm's movements. Their attacks followed a clear pattern, moving from the outer rim toward the more populated core systems. At their current rate of advance, they would reach the Council's capital within months. What's the Council's response? He asked. Speaker Vex Thari stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, her silver branches trembling with exhaustion and fear. In the past month, the Void Swarm had destroyed 37 Council worlds. Over 3 billion people were dead or missing, consumed by an enemy that seemed unstoppable. The great chamber that had once echoed with confident voices now held only whispers of desperation. 3 Council species had been completely wiped out. The proud Altarian Empire, which had commanded the strongest military in the galaxy, had lost half their territory in 2 weeks of fighting. The situation is critical, Vex Thari announced to the remaining 9 Council members. Admiral Vex Varaz's counterattack failed completely. We lost 400 ships without destroying a single enemy vessel. The floating jellyfish creature that represented the Luminari flickered with distressed colors. How is this possible? Our fleets have kept peace for 1,000 years. We have the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Advanced by our standards, replied Zaramin of the Kepler Union. Her blue skin had turned pale with worry. But this enemy adapts to everything we use against them. Our plasma weapons became useless after the first battle. Our particle beams have no effect. Even our fusion torpedoes are absorbed by their hulls. The small, furry representative of the Corlin Collective raised 4 of his 6 arms in agitation. Then what do? We cannot fight an enemy we cannot hurt. Perhaps, said a new voice, it is time to consider options we previously rejected. All eyes turned to Admiral Kexmari of the Vegan Alliance. She was a tall, graceful being with features that almost looked human. Her military record was spotless, and her tactical knowledge was respected throughout Council space. What options? Vex Thari asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The humans, Kexmari said simply. We exiled them for being too violent, too unpredictable. But perhaps those are exactly the qualities we need now. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several council members stood up, their alien forms shifting with rage and pride. Never, shouted the Altarian representative. We cast them out for good reason. They are barbarians who solve every problem with violence. Barbarians who might save us all, Kexmari replied calmly. Face the truth. Our conventional tactics have failed. Our weapons are useless. Our strategies are meaningless against an enemy that adapts faster than we can think. Vex Thari felt the weight of leadership crushing down on her. She had been the one to lead the vote against humanity 15 years ago. She had called them dangerous and unpredictable. Now, those same qualities might be the galaxy's only hope. What makes you think the humans would even help us? Asked the Luminari representative. We rejected them. We forced them to abandon their colonies. Why would they risk their lives for people who treated them as outcasts? Because, said a familiar voice from the chamber's entrance, that's what humans do. Everyone turned to see Governor Helena Walsh walking into the chamber. Her clothes were torn and dirty from her escape from Centauri Beta. Her eyes held the haunted look of someone who had seen an entire world die. Governor Walsh, Vex Thari said with surprise. You should be in the medical bay, recovering from your ordeal. I'll recover when this nightmare is over, Helena replied. I came here to tell you what I saw on Centauri Beta. The void didn't just destroy our world, they consumed it. Every building, every tree, every grain of soil was converted into raw material for their war machine. She walked to the center of the chamber, her voice growing stronger. But I also came to tell you about the message I sent to Earth. Do you know what the human government's first response was? Not anger for what happened to their former citizens. Not demands for an apology. Their first question was how they could. Help. The chamber fell silent. Helena continued, her words cutting through the alien's pride like a knife. You called humans violent, you're right. But they're violent in defense of others, not for conquest. You called them unpredictable, you're right about that too. They think outside the rules that limit the rest of us? Meanwhile, in the Sol system, President William Hayes sat in the emergency meeting room with his top advisors. The holographic displays showed the void swarms advance through council space, each red marker representing a dead world. The intelligence reports are getting worse, said Admiral Bennett, pointing to the tactical display. Captain Burke's reconnaissance. Missions show the swarm is building some kind of superweapon. If they finish it, they'll be able to destroy entire star systems from across the galaxy. General Kevin Clark, a hard-faced veteran of the colonial wars, slammed his fist on the table. Let them burn. The Council made their choice 15 years ago. They called us savages and threw us out like garbage. Now they can face the consequences. Kevin, President Hayes said quietly, 12 billion people have died in the past month, including 3 million humans who stayed in Council space. And how many humans died building those Council colonies? Clark shot back. How many of our people sacrificed their lives to protect alien worlds that didn't want us there? We owe them nothing. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had been quietly studying the technical reports, looked up from her datapad. Actually, we owe them everything. The room turned to look at her. Elena stood up and activated the holographic display, showing the swarm's projected path through the galaxy. Look at their movement pattern, she said. They're not random destroyers. They're following a specific plan. After they finish consuming the Council worlds, they'll move on to the next closest inhabited systems. That includes the colonies of the species that trade with us in secret. She changed the display to show the swarm's long-term projections. Within 5 years, they'll have consumed every inhabited world in this galaxy. Then they'll move on to the next galaxy and the next. This isn't just about the Council. It's about all organic life everywhere. President Hayes studied the projections with growing horror. You're saying we can't escape this threat? Exactly. We can run, but we can't hide. Sooner or later, they'll find us. The only way to stop them is to face them now, while we still have allies to help us. Admiral Bennett nodded grimly. Elena's right. We've been monitoring swarm communications. They know about Earth. They know about our colonies. We're already on their target list. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for isolation, others for limited assistance. But as more reports came in showing the swarm's unstoppable advance, the choice became clear. A soft chime announced an incoming message. The communication officer, Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Wright, looked up from her station with surprise. Sir, we're receiving a formal diplomatic transmission from the Galactic Council. It's addressed to you personally, Mr. President. The room fell silent. President Hayes authorized the message, and the holographic display showed the familiar figure of Speaker Vexthari. But the proud alien leader looked broken, her silver branches drooping with defeat. President Hayes of Earth, Vexthari began, her voice barely above a whisper. I speak for the Galactic Council in our darkest hour. We have made ... mistakes. Our pride blinded us to the value of diversity. Our fear of change led us to reject those who thought differently. She paused, seeming to struggle with the words. The enemy we face cannot be defeated by conventional means. They adapt to our weapons, counter our strategies, and consume our worlds faster than we can evacuate them. We need someone who thinks as they do, someone unpredictable, someone willing to break the rules. Another pause, longer this time. When Vexthari spoke again, her voice cracked with emotion. We formally request the assistance of humanity in defending the galaxy against the Void Swarm. In return, we offer full restoration of human citizenship in Council space, equal voting, rights, and formal recognition of human colonies beyond the Sol system. The message ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. After 15 years of exile, the Council was not just asking for help. They were offering everything humanity had originally wanted. General Clark was the first to speak. It's a trap. They wait until they're desperate, then try to use us as cannon fodder. No, said President Hayes, studying Vexthari's image frozen on the display. That was real desperation. Real fear. They know they're beaten. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up technical data on her pad. The question is whether we can actually help them. The swarm's adaptive technology is unlike anything we've encountered. Our weapons might work once, but then they'll adapt. Then we'll have to be more adaptive than they are, Hayes replied. That's what humans do best. We improvise. We change tactics mid-battle. We think outside the box. Admiral Bennett leaned forward. What are our conditions? President Hayes thought for a long moment. Outside the windows, Earth's blue skies showed no sign of the terrible war raging across the galaxy, but he knew that peace was temporary. The swarm would come for them eventually. We help them, he decided, but not as their servants or their cannon fodder. We help them as equals. Full council membership, equal say in military strategy, and recognition that humanity's way of thinking has value. And if they refuse, General Clark asked, then we defend ourselves and let them face the swarm alone. But somehow, I don't think they're in a position to refuse anything right now. President Hayes activated the communication system. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the human fleet emerge from hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. 15 years of exile had ended, but not in the way anyone had expected. Humanity was returning. Not as outcasts seeking forgiveness, but as saviors answering a desperate call for help. Behind the Defender, 200 human ships moved in perfect formation. They were smaller than the massive Council dreadnoughts, but they gleamed with advanced technology that made them look like weapons forged from starlight itself. Admiral, reported Captain Sophie Turner from her position at the sensor station, we're receiving multiple communications from Council forces. They're requesting immediate assistance at New Kythera. Jake studied the tactical display. The Council world of New Kythera was under siege by a massive void swarm fleet. Admiral Vexthari's remaining ships were barely holding a defensive line. Around the planet's orbital stations, how many swarm ships? Jake asked. 67 confirmed contacts, Turner replied. And they're still adapting to everything the Council throws at them. Jake nodded. This would be humanity's first real test against the swarm. Everything they had learned and built during their exile would be put to the ultimate challenge. Signal the fleet, he ordered. All ships prepare for combat. Remember these things. Adapt to repeated attacks. Keep changing tactics. Keep them guessing. The human fleet accelerated toward New Kythera. As they approached the battle zone, Jake could see the desperate fight taking place. Council ships were falling back, their weapons having little effect on the geometric nightmare that was the swarm. Fleet, Admiral Morrison. Came a transmission from Admiral Vexthari's flagship. Thank the stars you're here. We've lost 30 ships in the past hour. Our weapons are useless against them. Admiral Vexthari, Jake replied. Pull your ships back to a safe distance. We'll handle this. With respect, Admiral Morrison, you only have 200 ships against their 67. And their vessels are much larger than yours. Jake smiled. Grimly. Sizes and everything. All human ships, begin attack pattern Delta. Show them what we learned during our vacation. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions, moving with speed and agility that shocked the watching Council forces. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, the human ships spread out like a swarm of angry wasps. Captain Ryan Burke led the first attack wave in his stealth ship Shadow Hunter. All stealth units activate cloaking. Let's see how they adapt to enemies they can't see. Half the human fleet vanished from all sensors. The swarm ships, which had been converging on the visible human vessels, suddenly found themselves surrounded. By invisible attackers, fire! Jake commanded. The human weapons were unlike anything used in galactic warfare. Instead of massive energy beams or explosive torpedoes, they fired swarms of tiny, intelligent projectiles that moved like living things. Each projectile had its own guidance system and could change course multiple times before impact got the swarm. Ships, configured to defend against traditional weapons, were caught completely off guard. Hundreds of small impacts peppered their hulls, each one targeting a different system. The geometric vessels began to lose their perfect coordination. "They're trying to adapt," reported Dr. Elena Rodriguez from her position on the Defenders. "Science station, but our weapons are too diverse? Every projectile uses different technology." Jake watched with satisfaction as the first swarm ship began to break apart, but his celebration was short-lived. The remaining swarm vessels were already changing, their hulls shifting to better defend against the human weapons. "Pattern Delta is losing effectiveness," Captain Turner reported. "They're adapting faster than expected." "Then we change the game again," Jake said. "All ships, switch to Pattern Echo. Time to show them our real surprise." The human ships suddenly stopped firing. CONV and TIONAL weapons altogether. Instead, they began broadcasting powerful electromagnetic pulses that interfered with the swarm's collective consciousness. Commander Alex Thompson, now captain of the engineering vessel Tech Wizard, coordinated the electronic attack. Target. Their communication networks, Dr. Rodriguez's research shows they share information instantly. If we can disrupt that sharing, they can't adapt as quickly. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The swarm ships, which had moved with perfect coordination, suddenly began flying into each other. Their shared intelligence network was being jammed by human technology they had never encountered. "It's working," shouted Captain Burke over the communication system. "They're losing coordination. All units, focus fire on the largest vessels." Even as the humans pressed their advantage, the swarm was learning. Some ships began operating independently, using backup systems that were harder to jam. The battle was far from over. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, commanding the human fighter, squadrons led her pilots in close to the swarm vessels. Her small, agile ships danced between the geometric hulls, planting explosive charges in critical locations. "Maria," came Jake's voice over the radio, "what's your status?" "We're giving them a very bad day, Admiral," Maria replied as her fighter, twisted between two swarm beam weapons. "But they're starting to target our fighters specifically. We need to finish this fast." Jake made a decision that would have horrified the Council admirals. Instead of pulling back to reassess, he ordered a full advance, all ships close to point-blank range. "Use ramming speed if necessary. We end this now." The human fleet charged directly at the swarm vessels, firing everything they had. Some ships took heavy damage, but their determination was unshakable. Captain Jennifer Walsh, commanding the cruiser New Hope, actually rammed her ship into a damaged swarm vessel, destroying both ships but taking down one of the enemy's largest units. When the battle ended, 57 swarm ships had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 18 ships, but they had achieved something the Council thought impossible. They had defeated the swarm in open combat. Admiral Vexvara-S voice came over the communication system, filled with wonder and respect. "Admiral Morrison, that was ... extraordinary. In all my years of military service, I have never seen tactics like those." "That's because you've been fighting the same way for 1,000 years, Jake replied. "Sometimes you need to break the rules to win." But even as they celebrated their victory, Dr. Rodriguez was studying the data from the battle. Her findings were both encouraging and terrifying. "Admiral," she reported, "we hurt them badly, but they learned from every exchange. If we fight them the same way twice, they'll be ready for us." "Then we'll never fight them the same way twice," Jake said. "That's what humans do best. We adapt faster than anyone expects." News of the human victory spread quickly through Council. Space, worlds that had been preparing for evacuation, suddenly had hope again. But Jake knew the real test was still ahead. Captain Burke's reconnaissance had revealed the swarm's superweapon, a massive device capable of destroying entire star systems. The weapon was nearly complete, hidden in the dead system where the swarm had built their main construction facility. "All ships, set course for the Nexus system," Jake ordered. "We're going to destroy their superweapon before they can use it." The journey to the Nexus system took 3 days. During that time, human engineers worked around the clock to modify their weapons and tactics. By the time they arrived, the fleet carried entirely new systems. Designed specifically for this mission, the swarm's construction facility was beyond anything the humans had imagined. Thousands of ships, each one larger than a space station, surrounded a central structure the size of a small moon. The superweapon hung in the center like a dark star, its surface crackling with deadly energy. "My God," whispered Captain Turner. "That thing could crack a planet in half." "Not if we stop it first," Jake replied. "All ships begin final approach. Remember, we only get one chance at this." The human fleet split into multiple groups, each one targeting a different part of the facility. General Kevin Clark commanding. The Marine Assault Force led boarding parties to plant charges on critical support structures. The battle for the Nexus was the most intense fight in human history. Swarm ships poured out of the facility like angry insects, but the humans were ready. They used every trick they had learned, changing tactics so quickly that the swarm couldn't keep up. Dr. Rodriguez led a small team to the superweapon itself. Her job was to overload its power systems from the inside. As she worked, explosions shook the massive structure around her. "Elena," came Jake's voice over her radio. "How much longer?" "2 more minutes," she replied, her hands flying over the alien controls. "Just keep them off me." Outside, the human fleet was taking heavy losses, but they held the line. Captain Burke sacrificed his ship to destroy a critical power relay. Maria Santos led her fighters in a desperate charge that knocked out the facilities. "Main defenses." Finally, Elena's voice crackled over the radio. "Charges set. Everyone get clear." The human fleet pulled back as the superweapon began to overload. The explosion, when it came, lit up the entire system. The swarm's ultimate weapon died before it could be used, taking most of their construction facility with it. With their superweapon destroyed and their main fleet broken, the remaining swarm forces retreated beyond the galaxy's edge. The immediate threat was over.